data collection.
People driving idiots in parking lots.
Okay, what'd you see?
People speeding to get that open spot.
Okay, so parking causes safety issues. What else do we see?
Handicap spots don't change that often.
Handicap spots don't change that often. Means like one person pulls in and just like chills. Okay. Were there any illegal parking?
Well, wasn't there one person, John, who got a ticket when we were there?
Well, that was just because they parked in the, they had an expired tag.
Was that in our lot or the other lot?
That was in our,
So yeah, one illegal parking.
yeah. I found out that when you start going around recording license plate numbers, people come out to see what you're doing.
Who came out to see what you're doing?
512,
512. It's 512.
the safety guy who writes tickets. Yeah, I'm going down the line. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Taking down license plates. Why is that? License plate. You're not doing anything nefarious? No, sir. All right, have a good day.
Here's your SAT word of the day. Yeah. That's why I said don't write down the whole license plate number. Only the last 3 digits. Because you get questions like that and they look at your paper and you got license plate numbers on there. Otherwise they go, oh, you just got a couple digits.
Yeah.
What else do we see? What else do we learn? What else do we have questions about from actually collecting the data? Okay? Alright, so if you think about it, you know, what did we do first? We sat here and we said, we're gonna do a parking study. Okay. Well, the first thing we did was identify the time of day, day of week, week of year that we were going to collect data, yeah? A very important part of what we're doing because we don't want to find data that's not typical. You want to find a typical peaking data. So we did pretty much a typical day. Generally, you would do like a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday kind of thing. Or because it's a university, you'd probably pick like a Wednesday and a Tuesday and do those a couple times, right? Because Monday, maybe students aren't there. Friday, maybe students aren't there. Tuesday, Wednesday, it's probably solid. And because you guys have such dichotomous schedules, Tuesday's wildly different than Wednesday, right? So that's gonna change things around a bit. So if we were really looking to do this, we would do this on a Tuesday, Wednesday combination for probably 3 weeks. And that would give us an idea of a sense of what's going on. We wouldn't do it the first week, we wouldn't do it the last week, we wouldn't do it the week of spring break or the week before spring break. We would find kind of like typical weeks, right? That's what you're always gonna do when you go out and collect real data. You don't want to find a typical week, unless you're trying to do some kind of special event traffic, then you gotta go and do special event stuff, right? If you were doing, like Jackson, what's the name of Jacksonville Stadium? Jag Stadium. If you're doing the Daytona 500, right, you wouldn't do it, you know, without the Daytona 500 there, right?
We can't do it this week.
Yeah, if you were trying to do it for that specific event. You can't do it when there's like a different event going on. Like there's a Madonna concert, but you're trying to get parking for the Daytona 500. It's not the exact same thing. So identifying where and when you collect your data is important. What do we do next? Then we got a game plan, right? We sat down and said, this is how we're gonna sketch it out. This is how we're gonna do it. You know, you're gonna stand here, and you guys are gonna go over here, and you're gonna come here, and you're gonna go there. And we kind of sketched it out. Then the third thing we did was we went out to the field, right? We did a dry run. We walked around, we looked around, we said, yeah, this is how we drew it up, or this isn't how we drew it up, or blue tags are here, there's yellow tag section here, and that's gonna kind of mess things up because we have two different kinds of users. Then we have these disabled parking spaces, and you know how we're gonna address for that. Things that we didn't discuss here, right? Because we needed to go to the field. So field reviews are very important before you actually go out and collect data. Why is that, Daniel? Why are field reviews important?
You kind of have to understand the layout of what you're trying to study before you start collecting data, understand if there's any big discrepancies that you didn't notice in the planning stage.
Okay. That's correct. Solid answer. Why do we want to do that before we collect data?
It's kind of like properly setting the stage for a good data collection.
Okay, I'll buy that.
So that you limit the number of unknowns in the whole situation.
That's kind of what Daniel said. Big reason is because data collection is expensive, right? Collecting data is expensive. I mean, if you were all engineers and I was all paying you, I don't know, $35 an hour, what would that be? Probably wouldn't be paying you $35 an hour. I'd probably just send interns out there $20 an hour. But I'd still have to have one engineer out there. Right? So one guy goes out there, he's making $35 an hour. Each intern's making $20 an hour. You'd probably need two lots, probably need 4 interns at 2 hours apiece. Plus the travel time's another 3 hours apiece. So now we're talking 60 plus 70. Or no, yeah, 60. What's that?
Is it 1 and 5?
Yeah, so
35 times 3.
yeah, 35 times 3 plus 4 times 3.
4 times 60, 240.
Yeah.
Plus 1 and 5. 345.
How much?
345.
345. That's how much you guys get paid. That's not how much I bill the client for. How much do I bill the client for? If I'm charging them $350, how much am I billing the client?
600.
More.
7.
Wow.
It's like 2.5 to 3, depending. Because you got to think, I got to pay your benefits, I got to pay a little bit in retirement, and I got to pay a little bit into your health insurance, I got to pay a little bit into your dental and whatever I'm paying in, and well, there's PAR Enterprises. I got to make some profit here, right? And that's built into the overhead and profit stuff. So when I bill you out for say $50 an hour, it's $100,000 a year. When I bill my engineer out for $50 an hour, I'm actually charging the client $175. It's a reasonable billable rate. Let's see, my charge rate is like $270. Right, that's my charge rate. So for every hour that I'm doing a consulting job, I'm charging the client $270. That means my hours got to provide $270 worth of benefit to the client. That's why I have a bunch of interns under me who don't charge that much. So they make my 1 hour twice as productive, right? And that comes with management and contract stuff. You'll see. An important thing that young engineers tend to miss is that billing portion. So if I say, hey John, you should go do this task. And in my head and on my document, I know that my contract is I have to do this task, whether that's data collection or whatever. I have to do this task. That means I have to figure out who's going to do the task. My intern's going to do the task for me. Okay, my intern charges at $20 an hour or whatever. Right? And then I charge him at 20, 40, $50, right? And that's great and everything, but if I put 3 hours for John to do this task, John has no idea what he's doing, and he spends 7 hours on his task, does John still get paid?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's an intern, he's an employee, right? He spent 7 hours, he spent 4 extra hours on that task that he shouldn't have, right? That's why a lot of guys I know will actually say they'll hire the BC student before they hire the A student. Because the BC student will go and ask for help. The BC student will spend an hour on it, realize I have no idea what I'm doing, and then go seek help to not blow the 7 hours that John would have taken, right? Whereas someone who is, wants to show off or show that they can do it without asking for help will spend 7 hours on the task, but I only budgeted for 3. You spend 4 hours that I have to eat, right? That's kind of contract management stuff. If you bring that up in an interview, you'll be on lock. Like, yeah, I'd spend some time on it, but then I'd probably just go ask for help because I don't want to spend too many hours on it because each task has a certain number of budgeted hours. Right. So, what was the time, when, how, then the field review, then the data collection, and then I guess the 5th task would be the processing of the data to get some conclusions. So that's what we're doing now, right? We'll call that 5 tasks, 5 steps, right? When are we going to collect data? How are we going to collect data? Field review prior to collecting data, collecting the data, and then processing the data, right? Solid exam question. Solid. We recording? Get a multitude of questions on that. Okay, so as part of processing that, we talk about things that we saw, things that were interesting, things that were unique, things that were different, things that were expected, things that were not expected, right? And it's good to talk about these things and keep good notes because all these things go into the discussion of your lab report or your report to the client or whatever. You will find that a lot of what you do is writing and communicating, right? When I do a project for FDOT, what are they buying? What do I physically give them?
Your time.
Yes, but they can't.
The information that you compile.
That's right. They want me to tell them something, right? I don't do construction, right? I'm not building a bridge. I do traffic engineering professional services. I do professional services. That means I go and I do something for them, and then I tell them about it, and I say, hey, look, this, and because of this, I think you should do A, B, C, D because of what we found. I'm giving them a document, right? I'm giving them a report, and I'm giving them a presentation. I give a presentation, say, hey, look, go do A, B, C. And I give them a document that says, hey, A, B, C, do this, and this is why, and this is how we came to that conclusion, and all of this. All that is a written document, right? And for the most part, engineers hate writing. I don't know if that's true for all students, but I find that engineers hate writing. And I think back when I was a student, hated writing, hated it. And now it feels like that's all I do, right? Because they're paying for my opinion, and they're gonna pay for your opinion too in the future. Right? And you have to communicate that opinion to them and how you came to that because they're no dummies. You can't just say, hey, this. No, you got to justify it and walk them through the process. And if you're not doing a good job communicating, you're not going to get any more contracts. So all that is to say that our discussion here needs to be discussed in the report. Things like parking leads to unsafe conditions because people are speeding in and out to get to things. Great observation, right? We've never talked about this. All right, you didn't see any crashes, did you? No. It's good. Did you see any near misses? Yeah? What did we see? I want to know.
People speeding.
The people speeding.
I almost got hit.
How'd you almost get hit?
Person speeding around the corner.
Yeah, talk about that. All right, talk about near misses. Observational things that you wouldn't know unless you sat out there for 2 hours, right? That's, as the client, that's what I'm paying for, right? So a near miss is typically considered an evasive maneuver, right? And the idea is that if you have enough near misses, you're gonna have a hit, right? The idea is that for every hit, you had a couple near misses that you didn't catch, right? What about other modes of transportation? Did you see any of that?
The shuttles are driving by.
Shuttles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shuttles in the apartments around.
They have a shuttle?
Mm-hmm. Got like 4
The
vans.
SGA's got the big bucks.
It's like what is it, a bus?
Like 4 vans.
The university has 4 vans that they shuttle back and forth. Why is this, this is news to me. Has this always been here? Or are they like,
Yeah, they pick up right here at the circle.
never heard of it, ever. I've been here for almost 4 years. Ooh, I've been here for almost 4 years.
Well, they started it last year.
John's been here for longer than that. John's gonna have tenure before I do.
Yep. That's what they live for.
No, John, just stay and get the PhD. Just do it.
At this point, I might as well.
Right? The way when you tell people you were in college for 12 years, like, oh yeah, but you're a doctor.
Yeah.
They realize that you fumbled around for the first 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I accomplished in 8 years what most people can do in 4, so.
That's right. My buddy took 4 years to get a 2-year degree. It's okay. College. What high school students do by their junior year. He got his AA. It took him 4 years, poor bastard. It's all right. He's good at other things. Those are all the guys I grew up with. How many years did it take you to get your 2-year degree? 4. Okay. So, near misses. Okay. The shuttle thing goes back and forth to the student apartments. What do you think that does to parking?
Makes it a little bit better.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit better, right? Each one of those would be a car. Okay, talk about that. So, in your report, talk about safety. Talk about multi-modes. What other modes did you see?
Bikes.
Bikes. Bikes are good.
Motorcycle.
Okay, motorcycles, those are good. Those impact parking and spaces and things like that. All right, was there ample room for all the bicycles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a car.
I don't know, but you know, these are ideas. So we want to encourage people to ride their bikes. We want to encourage people to take the shuttle because it reduces the parking demand. Yeah. What about skateboards? You see any of those?
Plenty.
What's that?
Plenty, but that was like within parking lot, not out of school to parking lot.
Within parking lots. Please describe that phenomenon to me.
Get out of car,
Out of car.
grab skateboard,
Grad skateboard.
go to class.
Skateboard to class. Skateboard. I actually used a skateboard this weekend. My idiot friend had purchased a skateboard. I haven't skateboarded since I was probably 140 pounds. It was some time ago. But I'm a natural athlete, so it worked out fine. Mixed results, but fine.
You're a goofy foot?
What's that?
Are you a goofy foot?
I'm like, I plant my right and I kick my left, but I plant my right in the back.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
So you like to push with your front
All of you just went, yeah. So I was never very good at skateboarding. I preferred, I had a GT dyno with the pegs in the front and back, make ramps and stuff. That was more my style. Okay, so we did modes, we did safety. All right, the type of modes were shuttle. The skateboard thing is interesting. Okay, so mention that.
walking's too hard.
I mean, yeah, it's not a huge campus, but if I had to go over to the apartments, I'd be a little upset, right? But like, I mean, all of your class, I don't know where all your classes are, honestly. I assume they're in like engineering and COAS, and here apparently. But where else are your classes?
College of business.
The M building,
College of Business. Where's the M building?
Back behind me.
back behind me.
Okay.
I think there's one class in New Red's one this semester. It's just like the classroom in New Red's one for a few classes.
So, I mean, it's not a terribly large campus, but I mean, if you had to go back and forth across campus, it'd be a pain in the butt. I had an electric Razor scooter when I was in college. But I did it when it was cool. Before everyone else had their scooters. No one else had this idea
Oh
before.
my
I
god.
bought mine at Toys R Us for like $160.
Grown ass man walking into Toys R Us.
I was 20. I mean, if you call that a grown ass man. I mean, you guys might, but I wouldn't call that a late adolescent. But yeah, I rode that to and from classes and stuff. It was green. My professors used to take it and ride around the halls.
Very nice.
You can see me doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you brought it up here.
Oh, yeah, right, that lead.
Yeah, I did it before it was cool to do it, I'm just saying. Alright.
Through the deed, sweet right past ground.
Oh, I had. Yeah, no, Gaudreau would die. Brown would die. He would fall over. He may literally actually die if I did that. Meanwhile, the dean would be like, hey, get home. Dean's a really nice guy. I really like our dean. He's leaving. I don't know if you guys know that. He's retiring. So they're interviewing new deans now. So if you see everybody like uptight on campus, you'll know it's because they're interviewing, because that's the dean candidate.
Wait, who is the current dean?
Memorani, Maj Memorani. Yeah. He would be my boss's boss.
Oh, so it's the engineering dean.
Yeah, it's College of Engineering. Each college has its own dean.
Got it.
Each department has its own chair. Civil Engineering, Asher Gajar. College of Engineering, Memorani.
Got it.
Alright. So what else do we want to talk about in this report? What else do we see that was interesting? Do we see any odd walking patterns? Or just everyone just like go straight to the door?
People like park and sit in their car for a while.
Loitering.
Ooh, loitering. I don't know if
Idling.
Idling is different than loitering. Loitering is when you stand around. Idling is when you sit in your car and just burn emissions.
Yeah.
So what were they doing, do you think?
I don't know. On their phone.
Homework, coffee,
Waiting for their
on their phone, waiting for their classes to start, right?
Working up the will to go to class.
Yeah. Psyching himself up.
Maybe someone just in their spot and then just stay there.
They had 20 minutes with nothing to do, so they figured they'd pull out a little bit, get everyone excited, and then just back in.
It's evil.
I've done that before. I sit in my spot, reverse it, like, kidding.
That's just like, when you leave your mind, and it's like 5 minutes before the next lap starts, and someone's waiting for your car, you just sit there, you look down your phone, change the song for 5 minutes, make them late, the second they drive past you, you leave.
It's evil.
Yeah.
It's evil. That's how you get your car keyed. Okay. So what else do we see? I mean, that's a great observation. People idling in their cars.
No one paid attention to us when we tried to tell them why there was an open parking spot.
Why are you trying to tell them there's no parking spot? You're supposed to be an objective observer.
It was right in front of us and we wanted to fill it.
Okay, fair enough. I would say don't do that for your next parking study, but that's fine. What else?
And then we also told people that the spots were full, and they didn't listen to us again.
Yeah, no, it's what do you know? Just sitting there for an hour and a half. Alright, so all of those things need to be in a discussion. Okay? And what else?
For the category, you just want that single parking lot, not that side of it?
Yeah, just the ones you did. It's
Okay.
fine.
There's a CAD model. for it?
Yeah, I want you to do a CAD of the parking study, the parking lot.
You told me to do that, right?
No, I don't want one person to do it. Oh, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about what I,
Still gonna be due?
like a week from now.
Okay.
Somebody said there's a test on Thursday.
There's not a test on Thursday. What we're gonna do is we're probably gonna do another one of these type of things, another one of these lab-based things. It's gonna take a day to talk about it and do a field review, and then another day to do it, and then another day of discussion. So you're talking like 2 weeks from now, maybe more. We're gonna do another exam that's gonna cover ArcGIS, which will probably be a take-home portion. This discussion here, and whatever else we're doing next. So, what do you think something like that? All right, but I think you guys are getting more out of this like field review stuff and data collection stuff than if I were just up here lecturing about.
The software and stuff is actually beneficial as much as it sucks.
Yeah, and the ArcGIS stuff is transferable. Like, and the CAD stuff is transferable to what you're going to be doing probably this summer or next year in your real jobs.
Do you think we'll do the final on the last day of class, which is the 29th?
No final.
Is that what you guys want to do?
No final.
I gotta go back and check the SOs and see if I need to have you guys do a presentation.
Oh, please no.
I gotta do SOs, a student outcome. So each class has to have its own student outcome. I think drafting and ArcGIS, those are professional softwares. That's part of this SO. I think this report will check off the writing part of the SO. Each class you have to have student, you guys have to get better and better at things. So like in 140, I'm supposed to introduce things like AutoCAD and professional softwares and professional drafting. So you guys did like, in 140 we opened a CAD, right? And you like drew circles and lines and things, yeah? That was me introducing you to this idea. Here we're supposed to be practicing that idea and getting like better at it, right? Same thing with report writing. Introduce you to report writing, and then you're supposed to get better at it during this class. So I gotta check my SOs and make sure I'm checking all of my boxes, because not that you evaluate me based on SOs, you evaluate me based on whether you like me or whatever. But you're supposed to be evaluating me on my SOs, right? Was the class beneficial? How are you gonna use the class in the future? Whatever. Okay. Let's get back to this report that we're gonna write. Okay, so in the discussion, yeah, well, guys, we'll say in the discussion. In the discussion, you'll also talk about. I'm sorry, what was that? What was that? What, your phone just went off? What? Jasper's talking. Before you guys got in here, I did get a mustache sighting. Okay.
It was just as surprised to me as it was to you.
So, also in the discussion, talk about things that you would do differently, things that would improve the study had you the opportunity to go back and do it again. Yeah. I don't know exactly what that is. Anyone have any ideas?
Different day, different time.
Different day, especially different time,
Yeah.
right? Doing it a couple times to get a feel for it, so you have like some kind of idea of a general pattern or trend. We just pick the day and win. Yeah.
In our report, are we going to be reporting on just the parking lot that we did?
Yes, just the parking lot you did.
So it'll be the groups that collect the data submitting one report together, or individual reports?
I'm thinking individual reports. That way you all have to do the CAD and you all have to do the writing. And that way you can complain about each other. Right? Everyone gets the same set of data, and then you just go do it. It's more work, but I'll just give you more time to do it. I don't care. Just because I want you to have that experience. Okay? So after the discussion, after the discussion, you'll have, we'll get to that. After the discussion, you'll have a conclusion. In that conclusion, you'll summarize what you did, you'll summarize what you found, and you'll give a list of recommendations moving forward. Okay? So, we're gonna do it, so, let's say this. How I want you guys to write. I want you to write better than you did in 140. Okay? Oh, okay.
Did you ever read any of those? Or was it all Hannah?
Oh, Hannah. Yeah. Sorry.
So what
Grading-
was really good, you don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna find out though, because I don't have a grader for this. Okay. Important thing about writing is, you ever know what chapter headers are?
No.
They're headers of chapters. What subheaders are?
Headers or subchapters.
Okay? And then there's like third tier and fourth tier and fifth tier and everything else, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Rock on. Use those. Okay? Those help the reader understand what you're trying to say. So, whenever you're doing something, whether it's the introduction or it's the discussion or the analysis or the methods or whatever, try to categorize things. Try to break things up into chunks. Does that make sense? Like, a paper isn't just text on a piece of paper. Like, it's an introduction, a literature review, a methodology, an analysis and results, a discussion, a conclusion, right? Each one of those needs to have its own set of subcategories too, right? So an introduction should have background information about parking studies. My phone blows up. Background information about parking studies, but should also have a subchapter that says objective and goals. And you explicitly list what your objectives and goals are. When you're writing a final report, if you want to know what is good to say your objectives and goals are, go back to the contract and say what you were mandated to put in there, right? This is what I want. The objective of the study is the objective of this paper is to document a parking study that included analysis of when to do this, analysis of discussion and field review, the actual data collection. What were the 5 steps I said? Somebody look at that.
I don't know, what were they?
Right, we said when, how, field visit, actual data collection, and a discussion afterwards. Right? So that's part of the goals and objectives you can put in there. You're going to document all of those. Right? Then it's good to give like a preview to the next section. So we said, yeah, you would say just the background. We're not going to have a literature review. If this were an academic paper, we would have a literature review, but this is not. I don't want to say this. All right. So here you're telling me about the parking study. Why are we doing this? Why is this important? Right? This is why. This is what you're doing. Why you're going to do this, and what exactly you're going to do. Well, this is like the objective. This is like what you want to achieve, right? That's not really how you spell achieve, but whatever. This is what you want to achieve. This is what you're going to do. Okay? Okay? So this is where you would talk about, this is where you may bring in your CAD drawing. and say, we're going to station people here and here, and they're going to count cars that come in on these aisles at these times, and then the other team's gonna come in an hour later and they're gonna do this and this, right? And all the while we're gonna be taking observations. Yes?
What's the point of the CAD drawing if we could just use the map and like put a screenshot of the parking lot map in there?
Because I want you to have more practice with CAD,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
What would you, if I were actually doing this, what would I do? Would I do a CAD drawing or would I do a map?
Well, time is money, right? And in order to save your time and minimize the cost, we can just put a screenshot of the map and just make more money.
But
But they need to do more work.
All right, how about this? I will leave it up to you. You can either do a CAD drawing of the parking lot or a GIS map with a title block and a north arrow and a scale and a legend. Dealer's choice. Yeah?
Okay.
You said RGS was
What?
what area?
Would like it to be.
Yeah, and a scale.
The computers here definitely need some hardware optimization. I like GIS. I actually took a video of it crashing because I was getting frustrated. I'm just gonna send that to you.
You should see the hate emails I have for Morgan. It's just like five. I eventually just stopped replying. In my defense, I was at a wedding.
I can't imagine Morgan sending hate anything.
I don't know. They were real mean ones. I didn't read any of them. I think I read the first one. I read and replied to the first one. I just haven't been in my office yet. I literally been traveling all day.
Well, it crashed on me yesterday.
Of course it did. That's fine. We'll figure it out. I'm not a huge stickler on when these things are, as long as they're done.
I went to open the customization 10 and I like 10 tries, it kept crashing.
Yeah.
And then I took a video of it and the old, watch pop down boils. After that it behaved.
So, whichever one you want to do is fine, but I expect it in a title block and looking neat and professional. Yeah? See, I give you the tools, I'm going to use the tools and bring them back. All right. Whichever one. Dealer's choice is fine with me. Okay? So, part of this method is the procedure. Maybe. All right? We're going to do 6 steps. First step is blank, second step is blank, third step is blank, right? It's kind of a grueling way to write, and it's not very nuanced. However, it is complete and it is accurate. There are better ways to do it than just saying, here's a procedure. The procedure is what you did to accomplish the goals, okay? And in the procedure, you should, in each step, remind the reader why you're doing this procedural step. So, step 1 was figuring out the timing. We needed to know the timing, so we collected proper data so we could answer the research question X. That way, we didn't have data corresponding to an off-peak period or blah, 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 right? So, it is what you did and also why you did it this way, because someone is always going to ask, why, right? You want your methods to be in enough detail that someone can reproduce what you did, like they can physically go out and do exactly the same thing you did, just following the procedure, and have an understanding of why you did it and how that kind of relates to the goals or the objectives. I needed to do this procedural step to get to the next step because the next step gets me to this. Yes?
are we starting off with like step 1, plan parking study, or step 1, go to parking lot?
We did multiple steps before we got to go to parking lot. There was 2 steps we did before that. When and how, right? So that's your procedure. And then I also want to discuss the analysis portion. Right? The analysis portion is what we're going to do afterwards. We're going to calculate the things that are on the other side of the board. Right? And we're going to go over that. It's super easy stuff. It's not like very difficult analysis. But this is where you would bring in kind of your equations. As part of the procedure, we also did this analysis. This analysis is going to calculate things like duration and volume and turnover. You're going to define what all of these things are. I've posted a book that has them in there for you, right, to look at and review. And you're going to put the equations in there. Right? Who knows how to put equations into Word? All of you, most of you, except for Tate, who's not paying attention. Good. All right, I don't have to teach you how to do that. Okay, other super cool word tricks that are important. Yeah.
There's a bibliography creator in Word, and it'll do parenthetical citations for you.
I don't know what that means.
The little citations in the text.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you just open it up and click source 1, source 2, and it'll cite it all for you.
I never did that. I always did numbered values, and then scroll down to the bottom and cross-reference. But that's probably better. Yeah, I've never used that tool, but that's probably a good one. A good tool is the cross-reference tool. Now for this, you're gonna have like maybe one figure, maybe two, maybe a table, right? That's easy to maintain, but if you're writing a thesis with 75 tables and figures, it's a pain in the butt, yeah? Mariel's writing a paper. How's that going? But like, I just read Fanny's thesis, and she's got like 34 tables, or 34 figures. Each figure has to be referenced in the text. So if you put figure 34, you'll see blah, 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 blah. Or figure 34 shows A, B, C, X, Y, Z, right? But then you go back and put another figure in there, and all the figures got to read, right? So for each figure in each table, you need to insert, instead of putting the caption at the bottom, you need to right-click that figure and put insert caption. And then we'll automatically number them for you. And then you type out whatever caption you want. Then when you reference that figure in the text, you put cross-reference figure, insert figure, number only. So instead of typing out in figure 34, you'll type out in cross-reference, insert figure. So it'll say in, cross-reference, blah, blah, 34 will pop up. Then you talk about it. Then if you go back and put something above it, then everything will update automatically. You don't have to play that game of going back and forth. Yeah?
Do we include the AutoCAD?
You can include the AutoCAD, I would say, in the appendix at the end. So, see appendix, whatever, for the sketch. Not sketch. AutoCAD or map or whatever. Yeah? But that's a tool that will help you as you write larger and larger documents. This one, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Okay. Intro, methods, procedure, analysis. What are we doing on time? We get time. Okay? So the analysis will consist of these things. Parking volume, the number of vehicles, total number of vehicles divided by the hours of the observation. All right. Turnover rate, the total number of vehicles divided by the number of spots. Vehicle minutes, the vehicle times the number of minutes it was there, plus the next vehicle times the number of vehicles that was there, blah, 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 right? Vehicle minutes divided by the total number of vehicles, right? Gives you like a utilization of minutes, right? Load, which I'll bring up here in a second, and accumulation. Those are the analysis things. And then I have those defined up here. Assuming this thing comes up. There you go. Okay. So this is one of the course books, I guess. Whatever. I got it from Dr. Chen, and then I just photographed it. The whole thing. Which is probably, I don't know. But anyway, here we are. Chapter 5, parking studies. It talks about this stuff. Alright. We're going to do a summary table, which I don't know if it really talks about. Yeah, summary table. So right now you have a document. Can I see this? Yeah. It's got all kinds of hand notes on it, those things. Right? What we need is the number of unique cars in each parking spot and the number of minutes those parking spots were occupied for. So like, you'll have spot 1, 2, 3, and really we'll need actually I think there's an example here. Does this look familiar? Yeah, I kind of copied it as best I could. Alright, and then here's one that's kind of filled out. Alright, and they got spots and things and checks and whatever. Yeah. Vehicles parked and time used. Right, vehicles parked and time used. So spot 1 had one vehicle that stayed time used. 120 minutes. Spot 1 had one vehicle that was there before you got there and stayed there the whole time you were there, 120 minutes. Yeah? Or spot 2 had 2 vehicles that stayed for 105 minutes. So it was empty for 15 minutes over the course.
Oh, so it's the total amount of time the spot was used.
Yeah. And you're going to use these to calculate these.
And that's what the summary table.
Yeah, this is the summary table, and you're going to use those to calculate these. Alright? And then at the end, you'll put the totals. And here's one kind of filled out. So this one had 28 total vehicles for a total of 945 minutes. Here's our parking statistics. So, parking volume is the hourly representation of the number of vehicles using the facility during the analysis period. This is computed by adding the vehicles parked column of the data summary sheet, dividing by the number of hours in the observed period. Right? For example, summary sheet, 28 vehicles were observed during the 1 hour, so the volume is 28 vehicles per hour. You have 2 hours, right? So keep that in mind. Turnover is the rate in which each space is used and computed by dividing the sum of all the vehicles observed by the total number of spaces in the parking spot. In the example, 28 different vehicles were observed using 20 parking spaces, so the average turnover is 28 divided by 20 is 1.4 vehicles per space. The average is important. A study parking facility should include a space-by-space review of the turnover. Such effort will yield information concerning the long-term blah, blah, blah. We're not doing a space-by-space review. Right? Duration is the average time vehicle occupied a space and is computed by dividing the total vehicle hours or vehicle minutes parked by the total number of vehicles. 1 vehicle minute refers to 1 vehicle occupying 1 space for 1 minute. For example, 28 vehicles were parked for 945 vehicle minutes for an average of 33.75 minutes per parked vehicle. Make sense?
And did you say you posted this on campus?
Yeah, it's on campus. Would I ever discuss something and not post it on campus?
Well, yeah, I just didn't see the file. I didn't know if it did.
Daniel's shaking his head. It's
Oh,
you.
yeah, see, it's not, see the X?
Oh.
Yeah,
Good catch. Okay.
thank you.
Parking actually used and is best represented as a percent. To do so, the total vehicle hours or vehicle minutes used are divided by the total space hours or space minutes available. For the example, 945 vehicle minutes were used out of an available 1,200 minutes, vehicle minutes. Anyone understand what the 1,200 vehicle minutes refers to? It's the number of spots. So if you had 10 spots and you looked at them for 2 hours, it would be 10 spots times 120 minutes would be 1,200 minutes that you were looking at spots for, right? So 945 minutes were used of an available 1,200. Yeah.
So in our case, it was 1 hour.
Our case, it was 2 hours. We had 2-hour observations.
So 120 times however many spots.
Yeah.
And you count the handicap spots from that.
Yeah. So vehicle minutes used on available 1,200 minutes. 20 spaces times 60 minutes per space. The parking load is 78%. Since time elapses during which vehicles search for parking and enter and exit the vehicles, the parking load of 100 is nearly impossible to achieve. Garland Oil suggests the average parking lot is 85%. Average parking lot is 85%, for the garage is 80%, and for street parking is 90%. Values depend on the spaces, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the parking load allows an external examination of parking accumulation. Parking accumulation is simply the total number of vehicles using spaces at a particular time. We won't do accumulation, that seems kind of funky to me. So we'll just strike that. Good. Great, so back to, and you guys can look at that and read that and make sense of that. I don't treat you like children. But the procedure is what you did and how you did it and why it ties back to the objective and goals. And the analysis is calculating those things, right? That's what you're analyzing, right? So then you would have your results, and generally speaking, your results map back to your methods, right? In your results, you'll start with the first step of your methods, right? In the result, you'll start then the second step, and the third step, and the fourth step. If there's something to show for that procedure, if it's just like, hey, we talked about what we're going to do, then you can just say reference back to Appendix A, the figure, and we stood here and we did this, right? So this kind of maps to this. And just go in order like that, right? And if this has subheaders, and this has subheaders, use those subheaders in there. It's a perfect match. This is saying what you're going to do, and this is saying, I did this and I found X, Y, Z. This is the results of this, yeah? Then, discussion. This is where it gets interesting, right? We talked about what we were going to say in our discussion. We talked about the important parts, right? Things like safety, things that we wouldn't know that I'm actually paying you for the discussion, right? So if I were your client, I'm paying you to execute this. Well, I may also pay you to come up with this. I'm paying you to answer these questions, is really what I'm doing. Now, I may prescribe this as part of your fee. Look, answer this question and do it this way. Or I may say, answer this question, you figure out how to do it, right? Those are two different, it's a contracting thing, whatever it is that you're doing. I've done both, it's fine. But here's the objective, tell me how you're gonna do it, or here's the objective, and this is how you're gonna do it, whatever. I'm paying you to find this and to tell me about it, right? This is the money here, and the next chapter is the recommendations. So, discussion, all the things that we talked about that I wouldn't know because I wasn't there. I didn't actually see the pedestrians or the people waiting in their car or people avoiding getting hit by cars or people rushing to spots, right? I want to know what the problems are. This is where you tell me all the little grainy details, right? This is also an opportunity for you to write and tell me that you can write, right? So is the introduction. And you, in this part, you have to sell me. Make me want to read your report, right? This is your if you're a good writer, this is your opportunity to shine, right? And so is this, and so is the conclusion. But all those things in the discussion, yeah. And also go back to this and discuss how all of these observations feed into my objectives and goals. Right? That makes sense? Yeah? Okay? Then I would say conclusion and conclusions and recommendations. Okay? Summarize everything you did and found, and then tell me why it's important. Summarize everything you did and found. Make sure you address what the goals and conclusions are, or what the goals and objectives were. Answer this goal. The goal of this research was to identify parking issues related to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University's COAS building. Okay. How did you accomplish it? What is your answer? Right? Then give me recommendations. Don't just tell me you answered the question. What do we do to make things better? And draw these conclusions and recommendations come from this discussion. You discuss safety. What do we do to make things safer? You discuss multimodal options. How can we incorporate that to make things better? Right? We discussed people idling in their car. What can we do how can we use that information to make things better? Right? And then, typically, 6 is references. I don't know if you're going to have it. Yeah, you can reference this with this thing. APA, MLA, something. Okay? That's how you should write every technical report, I think. Right? We kind of did this in 140, yeah? Right? We introduced this idea, I want you to be better at it. Right? Every time we do this, you should be getting better.
We did a fair bit in 311.
We did in your class. I think we only had like 1 lab in our class.
Yeah.
It was not. 311 last semester was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. Let's just be honest. Yeah. We didn't get to do any labs. We kind of messed some things up.
One lab.
We did do 1 lab, right? That's
Or
it was speed distance.
Max, flows,
Calling out the cars as they go past.
That was a fun lab, I thought.
Yeah, that was before things went further worse.
Yeah, then we had example 1 after that.
It's all right. That's why we're doing this class a little different. All right? All right. Questions? All right. How long do you think it's going to take to do this?
A week.
I think it might take a little longer. Yeah?
What's the difference between
Results, you're just stating what happened, you're not drawing any inferences for it compared to analysis where
This is where your equations come in. And in the results, you kind of apply those equations to get a number.
Oh, so you're actually showing all the data you calculated results and analysis, you're just saying like,
What you're going to calculate.
here's what we need to calculate.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. Technical writing is either done in present tense or past tense. Okay? Never future tense. Sometimes I have a really hard time because I'll flip between present tense and past tense. I'm not very good at it. Sorry. It's something that I struggle with. I just want you guys to be aware of it. Try to stick to one. Present tense is kind of the easier of the two, I think, to stick with. But, you know, you're going to talk about things that you did in the past. So stick to present tense and past tense, or just stick to all past tense. It's fine. But be mindful of that. Never put anything in the future. This is stuff you already did or are currently doing. It currently exists, or you already did it. Yeah.
So how do you make a recommendation?
Yeah, the conclusion.
Um,
Are those separate from the
consider,
rest of the thing?
to address this issue, Embry-Riddle may want to consider X, Y, Z. Right? And generally, maybe this is just academic writing, you stay away from any shalls. Remember we talked about should, shall, may?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a may. Right? Because you can't be hammered on a may. It's like, meh, maybe. 'Cause you shall do this. Don't do any of that. That's
Everything shall
yeah.
be in
The findings suggest X.
Indicate.
Yeah. This result indicates that B, you know, option B may be a better alternative. Right? The results they suggest, they indicate, likely, may result in, may lead to, things like that. Be wishy-washy, like an academic. Right? Only hammering yourself down where you're contractually obligated to. Everything else is like, meh. Remember, you're a consultant, you're a professional service consultant. Right? You're being paid for your opinion. But you always want to leave a little wiggle room in there to get out of that opinion if something else comes up. Yeah.
Always right.
I mean, look, based on the numbers, it suggested that, but I didn't know these numbers were wrong. Yeah. So, all right. Any questions? Let's say today's Tuesday, next Tuesday. Let's go next Thursday. Let's say this is due next Thursday. So that gives you a week and a half. Yeah? Yeah, next Thursday it'll be good. Individual reports will be good. Who has the data?
John has.
You have some of the
I have
data.
COAS.
The twins have the other data. All right, that has to be digitized.
Roger.
Whether you want to type it up or whatever.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. You did that.
All right, send it to me and I'll post it.
Roger.
Okay, everyone is doing their own parking lot and the whole 2 hours. So you're not just doing the 1 hour that you were there at your one parking lot, you're doing your parking lot, but 2 hours of it. No, because some people did COAS and other people's did in front of the engineering building. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's fine. Because you weren't actually here data collection day, yeah? Okay. Any questions? All right. Did everyone like this lab assignment?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. It's good practice.